Ted Harrington. He is the founder of IoT Village at DEF CON, and he's also the #1 best-selling author of his book Hackable. So I'll also be revealing a really excited opportunity on the next slide. So yeah, he'll be giving away 1 copy of his signed book. So stay tuned for that as well. So some more background about our speaker, Ted Harrington. He's also the executive partner at the Independent Security Evaluators. So his company has discovered tens of thousands of security vulnerabilities over the years. And they're the first company to hack the iPhone and also the first company to ethically hack the Android OS. So really excited to have him here today. He's going to be giving a talk about his experiences and his lessons learned. All right, welcome.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to speak over you. Keep going.
Oh, no worries. I just wanted to announce a really exciting raffle that we'll have coming up. So as mentioned, his best-selling book, Hackable, he's going to be giving away a signed copy of this at the end of this event. So make sure to have your videos on and engage and ask questions. We really want to make the speaker event as engaging and as fun as possible. And at the end, we'll be drawing names, and one of you guys will have the exciting opportunity to win a signed copy. So yeah, let's get started.
Ready for me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Cool. I could still see your screen, so I wasn't sure if there was more you were wanting to present.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Now.
Awesome. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Ted, and I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I really appreciate you guys carving out some time for us to spend together here today, because I'm pretty excited about, first of all, what this group, what it is that you guys are about. And I'm super impressed by the interest in what it is that, you guys are trying to do with, striving towards careers in security. And it is such an incredible field. It's so stimulating. It's so exciting. And I hope that anyone who wants to go in it will do that. And so what I thought I would do here today is just walk you guys through, sort of help put you in my shoes, put yourself in my shoes, and kind of walk you through my career journey from kind of where I started to how I got here. So maybe you can see how you might do something similar, and certainly maybe be able to learn from some of the mistakes I made along the way, so you don't have to make those same mistakes. But really, I think the majority of the time that we'd spend here together today would be just whatever questions you have. I want to be able to answer them. I've probably got a story about any question you could possibly ask. So let's just let the stories roll. So where to begin? I guess, so to give you a little bit of background, I think one thing that will be interesting to point out as we look at, as sort of explain my career path and kind of how I got here and how you might similarly pursue your own career, is that I've not been a computer scientist my whole life. And that's drawn in an interesting contrast to, I think, the perception of what most people in security are. A lot of people think like, oh, well, you've got to have been hacking something since you were like 5. And if you haven't been hacking something since 5, you're probably not going to really be able to make it a career. And that's actually not true. There are plenty of people who are like that, who have been, hacking things since they're little kids, but that's not everybody. And I'm certainly one of those people who maybe picked it up later in life. Certainly every single one of you is further ahead on this journey than I was at your age. So that's a good sign, I think. So I guess the place to start would probably be, my path to security has always come from the entrepreneurial path. That's what I've been trending towards my whole life. I started my first company when I was in college, and the company was, I don't know, I enjoyed it while I was doing it. And like, while all my friends were doing their, $6 an hour menial jobs, I was running this company and was making a lot more money than they were. And it was much more interesting and stimulating. But by the time I graduated college, I realized that this company that I'd started, it really wasn't fulfilling to me. And my vision all along had been, well, I'm never going to work for somebody else. I'm just going to, go do my own thing. And I have this really vivid memory actually of when I was a junior in college, and my mom, I was home for a break at one point. I'm hanging out with my mom and dad. My mom says, well, we're going to have to get you a suit. And I'm like, why? Why would I need a suit? And she says, well, because, it's junior year. You're going to have to start interviewing for your, postgraduate career or your career after you graduate. And I sort of thought about that, and I was like, no, I'm just going to work for myself. So I probably won't need that suit. Of course, I didn't know that I would probably need a suit to go raise money and stuff, but like, obviously the arrogance of youth being what it was, but like, that was my mindset. I was like, I'm just only ever going to work for myself. And so I found that I'd, started this company, and I realized that it wasn't fulfilling for me. And that's one of the key things that I would advocate for all of you guys as you're going through making your various decisions about your academic decisions and your career decisions, is, in addition to making the decisions, try to understand what's motivating you to make that decision. And sometimes you need the benefit of time. You need the benefit of having, of hindsight, right? To be able to look backwards on what happened and be able to evaluate, why did you make that decision? And for me, that was definitely the case. I needed the benefit of time to look backwards and say, oh, okay, why did I make that decision? I realized that there are some principles that guide my life. And by this point in my life, I've identified 4 of them. I know that I'll identify more as I continue to mature and learn more about myself and more about the world, and, just continue my own journey of growth. I know that I'll continue to peel back the layers of the onion, but I've identified 4. And the 4 that I've identified are that I'm driven to do hard things that matter in the service of others and get better every day. And I picked those up just by looking back at the decisions that I made all along. And so certainly one of the decisions that I'd made there and trying to not continue with the company that I'd started was, I just didn't feel that it mattered enough. I liked it. It was profitable, but I just didn't think that it mattered enough. It was definitely hard. It met that criteria. I mean, it was a scary venture, and, running a whole company basically on credit card debt was how I financed the whole thing, which I do not recommend that necessarily, but teaches you a few things about money management. So then when I graduated, I decided that I wanted some mentorship, because I had started a company, and it was fine. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my passion. And so I intentionally joined a company where I could get mentorship. And I found this one company, small family-owned type business, where the CEO was sort of stepping out of day-to-day operations, and all he wanted to do was to mentor somebody. And I'm like, yup, I want the mentorship of an entrepreneur. That's 100% what I want. And so I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and I learned a tremendous amount. And that's another thing that I'd recommend as you go through each of these next few stages in your life, is think about, where can you find mentors? And here's the cool thing about mentors, is that the people who are going to be good mentors, they want to be mentors. They want to say yes to some passionate, driven, ambitious, smart, rising star who says, I don't know everything. I want to know more. Can you help me? There are people who want to say yes to that. And I know that sounds like a really scary thing, right? To say, how am I going to go ask this much more seasoned, experienced person if they can advise me? But just know that there are people out there who want to say yes to that. Now, I can give you some advice on like how to actually go about making that ask, because there's a right way and there's a maybe less right way. We can get to that if that is a question that people want to ask. But definitely, seek mentorship. And so that's what I did. Spent about 6 years doing that, and with this company, where I was basically like a director in the company by the time I left. And I left to go become the CEO of this company that had this really cool tech that saved water and irrigation lines. And I thought that was cool. That was something that mattered. It was definitely hard. And the challenge of saving water, I mean, especially in California, where I now live, you know, at that time there was a big drought going on, and it seemed like something that was really awesome and that mattered. And I learned a lot from that. But one thing I definitely learned was that not every market is ready for every solution. And it became pretty clear to me that that company wasn't really going to succeed, just because I think water conservation is one of those things where people are like, yeah, no, I totally want to be green, except they don't want to spend money for it, unfortunately. But as I was sort of coming to that realization, that was when I met who now became my business partner. We got introduced through a friend we have in common. This guy who's this super badass ethical hacker from the NSA is someone that we both knew, and was like, you guys have to meet each other. And my business partner was looking for somebody with that more entrepreneurial bent. And I was looking for, I didn't know it necessarily in the terms I said before, but I was looking for those four things, those four principles. And once I met this now business partner of mine, and we started talking about what security is, I realized I'm home. This is it. I found it. And security absolutely has all four of those things in spades. It's hard. It matters. You're serving others, and you are required to get better every day. I guess you could not get better every day, but you wouldn't be very good at security. You wouldn't be very good at your profession. So I think you probably want to do that. And so that was a pretty, wonderful experience once I realized, hey, here's this whole world to me. And so I became a partner at this company that is called ISE, Independent Security Evaluators. And that was a little over 9 years ago. And basically what our company does, we're the good guy hackers, right? Companies hire us to help them literally hack their systems, literally, find security vulnerabilities in their systems, and to help them fix those vulnerabilities. And we do that also as research. And we've published some really cool research over the years we've been doing this. Like, and I can tell you all these stories if you want to hear some hacking stories. But we were the first company to hack the iPhone. We hacked a car at one point. We spent some time hacking cryptocurrency wallets. We saw how, like, Ethereum wallets, someone could actually steal currency out of these wallets. We've looked at password managers. We looked at just all kinds of stuff, medical devices, and each one of those has a really interesting implication based on what the research was that we were trying to do. And one of the things that we did along the way was what was mentioned earlier in the introduction, was we started this thing called IoT Village. And if you're familiar with DEF CON, which is a security research conference, not just, it's described as if like it's just a conference. It's like the security research conference. And it's definitely the like epicenter of awesome, cool security. There are larger security conferences like Black Hat and RSA are larger, but those are a little more commercial. They're more focused. They're a little more focused around the business of security, which isn't a bad thing. It's just a different focus. Whereas DEF CON is a little more focused on the research and the researchers themselves. There's a lot that I would recommend about participating with DEF CON if becoming a security practitioner is something that you want to do. That is a fantastic place to go and learn it. So anyway, so DEF CON is this really, really big conference, and it has this idea called the village. They have these villages, and the village is almost like imagine like a conference within a conference, and they have different villages that are focused on these different topic areas. So at this time, this was probably, the years all kind of blur together to me at this point, but I want to say it was maybe around 2015 or 2016, something like that. And there were 8, I think, villages, 8 or 10, somewhere around there, like single digit number of villages. And there was one about learning how to pick locks, and one about cryptography. And there was one about, I think there's one about social engineering. I can't remember what they all were, but there were like 8 or 10 of them. And we started talking to DEF CON about doing this idea that was around the Internet of Things. And so we started this what is now IoT Village. And the very first one, before it was even a village, like the year before it was a village, it was just a little contest hacking routers. And to give you a scale of like how far it's come, that first year when it wasn't even IoT Village, it was just like this little hacking contest. I don't know if you've ever been to a conference, but at bigger conferences, it's like you go into this big hotel or big casino, and there's like a big ballroom, and then there's like a hallway down the side. And you go down that hallway, and then there's like not as many people down there. And then you turn to the left, and there's like another hallway, and there's like even less people there. And then you turn to the right, and like now at this point, you think you're maybe in the kitchen. You're so far away from like the main part of the conference, and there's like nobody there. So there's a room all the way down there, and we're in the back of that room, not even our room, like someone else's room in the back of that, literally behind a trash can. It's like our dinky little table behind a trash can, down a hallway, down a hallway, down a hallway, down a hallway. Like, no, I don't even know how people knew we were there. At one point, I remember someone tries to throw a piece of trash in the barrel, misses it, and it like lands on our table. And we're like, what are we doing here? We're like, our table's, what is this? But it went well. Like what we were doing was we were hacking routers, and it really resonated with the audience. And I will give you a secret that free t-shirts will get people in a room. We started tweeting about just giving away. We were trying to sell t-shirts. We're like, screw it. Let's just give them away. And all of a sudden people started coming in. So, I mean, there's the nugget of wisdom there too. But so that first year it was rustic, I guess is one way you might describe it. Well, I fast forward to today, or to a pre-pandemic when we could do them live, and it's I don't know how to measure them, but it's definitely one of the largest villages. It sort of triggered this. I don't know if we triggered this, but there was an inflection point when there were like only 8 or so villages, 8 or 10, including our village. And now there's like 20 something, maybe more. But our village is this, like, I obviously have a bias to it, but it's big and it's cool and it's like lit like purple. And we have these really big security names, security people come and talk at it. And we have these awesome hacking contests, and we do all this cool stuff because security is a community. And, so that's kind of what IoT Village is about. It's to get people together to give talks about, or to participate in contests, or to actually hands-on, actually like hack IoT devices. I would definitely recommend that you participate in IoT Village at some point. The pandemic has definitely forced it to go virtual, which has been actually quite a blessing for it, because when you remove the physical barriers to attendance, right? Like someone might not be able to fly to Las Vegas from, I don't know, India or something. Like it just might be too long of a trip, too expensive, whatever. Well, they can certainly log on to, just like we're doing right here, to Zoom. And now they can start getting access to this information, and it's usually free. Some cases you have to buy a ticket, but usually it's, I mean, we don't charge for it. The conferences we run it in participation with sometimes charge for it. So that's kind of, IoT Village. And the book that was mentioned earlier, this book I wrote, Hackable, I wrote this to basically take all those experiences. Like, what did we learn in IoT Village? What did we learn by hacking cars and phones and all this stuff? What do we learn by helping some of these, some of the largest companies in the world deal with their security challenges? How can I put that out in the world to help more people? And that's what the book does. It's like all these stories about all the stuff that we've seen, obviously without naming names, where I can't name names, but then it tells you how to deal with it. And one of the real problems in security today is there's so many misconceptions about how to do it. This book identifies those misconceptions and then says, hey, instead of doing that, which is not the correct way, do it this way. And so that's what the book is about. And obviously catalogs a lot of the experiences that we had. So that's sort of my story arc, like how I got here. And I think the thing that I want to point out about all of that is that, going back to what I said earlier, right, that there's commonly this a misconception that you need to have been hacking things since you were like 4 in order to have a career in security. And actually that's not true, because I didn't. 9 years ago, I wasn't even in security, maybe a little more, like closer to 10 years, but like not, it's not like a lifetime ago, I wasn't in security. And fast forward to today, I'm the author of a #1 best-selling book on the topic, and I founded this, really cool traveling circus, and I'm a partner in one of the most elite groups of ethical hackers around. Like, it can be, if I could learn it, you guys can definitely learn it. And so it's definitely not too late if you feel like, hey, the ship has left port. That's not the case. So with that, why don't I shut up for a minute, um, and see what questions I can answer, because what I'd love to do is just, like I said, be a resource for you guys. And whether it's questions about your careers, you want to ask about specific topics relative to security, like however I can help you, I am here for you guys. So with that, what questions we have? Oh, and by the way, yeah, the raffle is going to be for, I can't remember. I guess it's whoever is going to participate will be put in a raffle for the book.
Yeah. So feel free to speak up and ask questions. I see someone's raising their hand. So yeah, Tiffany, feel free to ask a question.
Okay, I have one question. Did you learn most of your stuff on the job or from your mentor?
I'm pausing to answer that only because I'm trying to think about whether those are two different things or not. They are two different things. So I would, it's definitely both, right? Having people who you can look to ask questions of, and get solicit advice from, and can like point out your form when it's wrong, right? And you're like, oh, I got this thing, and they're like, well, Ted, I was in that meeting with you. You do not have that thing. Like plenty of those uncomfortable conversations, and that helps you also thicken your skin up a little bit, by the way. So a mentor definitely helps you do that. One of the things that I observed along the way is that as you become senior in an organization, or if you like start your own company, your opportunities for mentorship are a little different, because let's say you work in a large enterprise. Your mentor could be your boss. It could be a senior person in another department. It could be, if the company's large enough, like there's plenty of people that are more senior than you who you have opportunities to say, like, maybe this is the right mentor, or maybe that's the right mentor. But when you get closer to the top, there's fewer of those, or maybe zero. And so you start having to look in other directions. And so one of the things that I learned to do early on, or I shouldn't say I learned how to do it, I realized something I was already doing and I should maybe go back to it, and that's reading, or really any form of continuous education. So reading books is almost like, hey, for $20, I can buy a mentor on a particular topic. Now, the book can't tell you where your form is wrong. They can't be like, Ted, you said that wrong. But if you're self-aware, you can read the ideas in the book and say, oh, I'm doing that thing that they're saying is the wrong way to do it. Okay, I can now start to correct that. So books are a great way. Courses, there's tons of ways to learn through courses, and I'll talk to you guys about a course idea later. But so that's one thing. So mentorship, whether it's actually like a person or through other forms of continuous learning. And then, yeah, the things that I did on the job. And one of the things that I did, this is very bold, and I don't know if this is for everybody, but I would highly recommend it, is the best way to learn anything is to teach. That's actually something a mentor taught me. The best way to learn something is to teach it, because when you teach it to someone else, you learn it in a different way and it becomes more permanent for you. So early in my security career, I knew that as sort of like a philosophy. And so I said, all right, well, if the best way to learn is to teach, I'm going to try to go teach some ideas to somebody. And so I went and, submitted myself to go give a talk at a conference about a topic I really didn't know anything about. And the forcing function that was, well, I'm going to get on that stage and maybe people are going to hate me. Like that forced me to really go study the idea, work with a bunch of people and make sure I understood the topic better. And that was really, really powerful. That accelerated me. Absolutely. So that's a form of, obviously, sort of on the job learning, but it's a very long answer to a really good question. The short answer is it takes a combination of things, and just find the combination that works for you ultimately.
Awesome. Yeah, I see Megan is also raising hands. So go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so you said that in the early days of your company, it was leaning more towards a ethical hacking competition. So I'm just wondering now, is it like a competition? It's still a competition, but is it leaning toward more towards cybersecurity, or is it still a lot of ethical hacking?
Well, ethical hacking is a subset of cybersecurity. So to make it clear, maybe I may have described this in a way that wasn't that clear. So I have a consulting company, and we do ethical hacking. Like that's what companies will pay us for that, right? They'll say, "Hey, we have this product, we have this piece of software. Can you come hack it and then tell us what the problems are and can you help us fix it?" And so that's definitely ethical hacking. The IoT Village, which I mentioned, started as this like quasi trash receptacle down a hallway. That's really more of like a contest. It's really more like a way to experience learning, right? Like we have a physical room, you walk into it, you can play a game over there, or you can hear a talk over here. And a lot of the ideas that come out of that are also from ethical hacking. And the distinction between the two, and that might be worth maybe defining. So cybersecurity is basically there are a lot of different ways a lot of different words people might use to describe it, but essentially it's the protection of information that is in a digital form. So that's essentially what cybersecurity is. In different contexts, it might mean something slightly differently, but that's sort of drawing the distinction between, say, physical security, which would be like a security guard standing outside of a building with a gun. Like that's physical security. And cybersecurity is protecting computer systems, basically. And then ethical hacking. So cybersecurity, if it's like this umbrella that has all these different domains into it, one of those domains, there's three ways to think about it. So there's things that prevent, there's things that detect, and then there's things that respond. So those are, I'm way oversimplifying it, but those are sort of like the three ways of thinking about cybersecurity. And ethical hacking is a type of prevention. So basically with ethical hacking, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find those problems so that you can fix them so that the attack isn't successful. And so that's really, I think, the distinction. So our company and the event are all focused around ethical hacking, which is a subset of cybersecurity.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think there's a few questions in the chat. I can go ahead and read them out loud.
Sure.
So Risha asks, what tips do you have for starting a successful business?
Well, first and foremost, find a problem and then go solve the problem. And in entrepreneurial circles, that's a pretty well understood concept, but you'd be surprised how often people think about starting a company in the sense of, all right, well, I want to go make $1 million. And then they work backwards from the goal of making $1 million. And when you develop what's called a business model, there's nothing wrong with that. A business model is a fancy way of saying, how do you make money? And there's nothing wrong with saying, all right, once I've identified the problem I want to solve, now I have to understand, how am I going to make money? The companies that start with wanting to solve a problem, either because they experience the pain themselves or they observe people experiencing the pain, those are going to always be the strongest companies, because they know the problem and then they're constantly trying to solve it because they're trying to help people. And I mentioned that sort of those four philosophies, the third philosophy I mentioned about myself was in the service of others. And that, I believe, is one of the really critical traits of entrepreneurship, is being able to make sure that what you're doing is in the service of others. Even though eventually you might become very wealthy as a result, the goal should be solving the problem. So there's obviously a lot more tips than that, but that would be the big number one burning one that I would recommend, is just start and I do this every day, all day, even though I obviously already have a company. Just look at things around you that either annoy you or annoy the people that you're around, or they're inefficient. Like anytime you're like, man, I wish this would be faster. I wish this was easier. Or you hear someone else say that, take note of those things, because those are the things that people will pay money in order to make that problem go away.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot more questions in the chat, so let's go for another one. Um, Another question is, how hard is it to hack the iPhone, and how long did it take you?
Oh man, that's a fun story. So when the iPhone first came out, it's kind of funny, the iPhone story. I'm really glad you asked about it because I still think it's awesome and cool and relevant, but like it was a long time ago. That was like 2007, like 14 years ago, but it's still so relevant today. And when the iPhone came out, it really changed the world. You guys were all probably too young to really remember it actually, like the impact that it was having. But before the iPhone, phones were like, you pushed the buttons. Like it was a flip phone. There was no browser. There was like, the iPhone really changed everything. And we really wanted one because like everybody else, are awesome. It's like, we want this cool new tech, but we also wanted to hack it and we wanted to be first. But the problem was that there were other security researchers who also wanted to be first. And Apple certainly wasn't going to be sharing information about this emerging new technology, especially not so that someone could like hack it and put it in the news. And since we wanted to be first, we knew that we needed to gain some sort of advantage. So the team that was doing the research, and the team that was doing the research came up with this hypothesis. And the hypothesis was that as Apple was moving from a desktop operating system to a mobile operating system, maybe they would cut a corner. And so what they started doing was they said, okay, well, let's start working out some scenarios that if Apple either cutting a corner makes it sound like they were lazy. I don't mean it like that, but it's more like when it comes to releasing products, there's a deadline, it has to come out. And sometimes the project to get it ready to come out runs out of time. And so there might be some things we're like, all right, well, that thing we're not going to get to, unfortunately, but we got to, the market is, there's a big event where we can't push this thing back. And so there was a hypothesis that maybe a vulnerability that's known to exist in the desktop operating system might get ported over to this new first of its kind mobile operating system. And if that was true, then maybe we could develop some attack scenarios based on that. And so the research team, in advance of the phone coming out, that's what they did, is they sort of built some scenarios and said, well, here's a known issue. And if that issue hasn't been remediated and it's ported over, here's how we might attack it. And they built all these scenarios out. And so when the iPhone comes out, like, not only could we not get our hands on an early release of one, like we had to wait in line like everybody else. And the lines were, people like literally camped out. So like every other lunatic, we had to deal with that. But we finally get our hands on iPhone. We started running through some of these scenarios, and it turns out that our hypothesis proved to be true. And a buffer overflow vulnerability had been ported over. And so what that meant, and we proved the concept on this by actually taking over the phone of a New York Times reporter while it sat on his desk in Manhattan. And our research team was in the lab in Baltimore. And took the phone over, gained full administrative control, were able to do everything you could do if you were holding the phone, like send and receive text messages, turn on the camera, fire up the microphone, basically everything you could do. And that was all because this issue had sort of been, ported over. And so in terms of how hard was it? Well, it certainly took a degree of expertise and creative problem solving to come up with that scenario, because that I didn't actually finish the story. We were first. We were the first people ultimately to hack the iPhone because of the way that we'd approached that as a research project with that sort of out of the box thinking. Like no one else had really thought of doing it that way. And so that's ultimately, how it happened. But yeah, it took a degree of expertise. There was some tools that were involved as well. And I think the total project timeline was, I'm actually not positive, but I want to say it was like 3 or 4 weeks or something. And obviously the iPhone has been through a lot of testing and would be pretty hard to hack in the same way today. I mean, maybe even impossible in the same way that we just did it, but there are vulnerabilities all the time. Like if you just go on YouTube and search for iPhone hack, you'd find something new, something recent. So that was the iPhone story. And I would say Apple was super psyched when those results were submitted to them. But they took the information and they immediately went and fixed the problem. And that is the whole purpose of security research, is to make things better. And so that was a real positive win, that that they were able to fix it and fix it quickly. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about that story is Apple, who hires like some of the smartest people in the world and has, tons of resources, they make mistakes too. And that's not an indictment on Apple, or really an indictment on anybody, but just saying that's the reality of building software systems, is that they have vulnerabilities and they can be exploited. And that's why careers in security really matter, because these things exist. This isn't like some fear monger out here, which many security people are kind of like that, who are like, oh, the sky is falling. It's like, I don't actually believe that way of thinking. But nevertheless, these scary things do exist. So there's the iPhone story for you.
Wow, that's incredible. And yeah, I think it's so important that every single like device they're using, it's hard to imagine that they could have security vulnerabilities. But like you mentioned, no company is really perfect. So yeah, moving on to another question. Sonia asked, what courses did you take to build your knowledge on cybersecurity, and when? So like in college or in high school?
Well, the answer that I'm going to give you for that is both extremely unhelpful and hopefully a little bit helpful. So the extremely unhelpful answer is, well, I was in the fortunate position to be surrounded by some of the smartest security minds like in the world. And so I wound up just learning from them. Like, I didn't actually go take formal classes. What I did, I was like like they say, the school of hard knocks. I don't know. That's a dumb way of saying it. Forget that I said that. I hate that I just said that. No, I was more like, I just learned it by almost the Socratic method, right? Which is like relentless questions, because I found myself, operating this business that I understood the principles of running a business, but I didn't necessarily understand most of it. Frankly, yeah, most of what we did, I didn't understand how we did it. And so what I had to do was, like, every day be sitting down with somebody, and I had to murder my ego and never, ever, ever let myself not ask a question because I thought it was too stupid. And there are questions in the world, I think, that are too stupid, but they're usually questions that are like, you asked the question, you got the answer, and then because you weren't paying attention, you ask it again. Like, that's maybe a stupid question. But asking questions because you don't understand something is really not a stupid question. But a lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to say anything because I feel like I should know that, right? And so I was like, all right, I got to get past that. And so just relentlessly asking questions like, oh, what do you mean by that? Can you define that? Can you explain that? Like, what's the principle here? What's the concept? And what I was really trying to do, I knew there was this gap in the world between the technical folks and the business folks. And I noticed that they didn't really speak each other's language very well. And still to this day, in all of tech, the technical folks and the business folks don't very well communicate with each other. And I saw that as an opportunity that I could fill. I'm like, well, I could be that sort of translator. I could figure out, because I know how business people think, and I just got to now learn how the technical people think. And once I get that, then I'll be able to be this like go-between. And because I had that sort of objective in mind, that's how I was able to acquire all the knowledge that I needed. So since all of you do not work at my company right now, and that answer is not helpful, this is what I would recommend. So I would definitely recommend that you do some hands-on things, like go participate in a lab. I mentioned IoT Village and those labs, and they're free and you can access them, remotely, like 100%. I would say go do that. Or if it doesn't have to be IoT Village, but like go find some sort of capture the flag contest or some sort of event, some sort of lab that you can get hands-on. Because what happens is, as soon as you get to a stage and you're like, I don't know what to do here, what do? You go research how to do it. And that now teaches you what you have to do. So I think experiential learning is great. It's really, really powerful. Definitely, I would say take some online courses. There's so much information out there. And I'm going to come back to that in one sec. But the third thing before I come back to that is, so in addition to sort of online courses, think about in your degree programs wherever you are currently and wherever you're going next, think about what academic experience that you can get. Even if you're, say, going to be attending a computer science degree program and security's only got like the one class and a club, take advantage of it. Like, absolutely take those courses. Don't worry that, hey, maybe this will weight your GPA down because it seems harder. That's why you want to do it, because it's harder. That's smart people are going to be in that room. You're going to acquire these skills, and this misconception that security is super hard is a reason to maybe not do it. That runs really rampant. Most people don't admit it, but it's true. Most people are like, that's hard. I want to do something a little easier. Like, I suck at Italian. I suck at speaking Italian, but I wanted to go to Italy when I was in college. So I took like 5 semesters of being a C+ student so that I could go to Italy and say more than just like pasta, lasagna, like I wanted to live with a family. And it paid off when I got there, because all like this suffering of semester after semester after semester of just suffering, and like my GPA being like, dude, do you have to take that class? Then when I got there, it clicked. Like, all that pain and suffering, it just clicked. And I couldn't see it in the moment. It took me 2.5 years. But when I was there, I'll tell you, my experience in Italy was incredible because I could speak Italian. And it was only because I suffered I was able to do that. So take the security classes, even if you're like, I suck at this. It'll make you better. Going back to the course thing. So I am in the process right now of developing a course that's based on a lot of the things we're talking about here today, specifically around my book and the insights in there. And so I partnered with this really cool platform. It's called InfoSec, and the InfoSec Institute specifically. And they have this huge library of content. And I think it's something like, actually I have it open right here. 700 courses, 160 labs, thousands of hours of training. And their model is, most training courses are like, $1,000 to $5,000 per person for the one class. That's the way like most training is, of like professional degree training. But this platform is like $300 a year. And I was like, I want that one. I want the one where it can be accessible to people. And they gave me this whole like coupon code. So then it's like anyone who uses the coupon code, it's like half off of that. So if you're wanting to find some affordable, accessible training, I would definitely recommend that. And what's cool is my course isn't even live yet. My course won't be live till probably like, I think August. But I can already let people use that. So you could like tomorrow start getting access to that thing. I'll drop it into the chat if anyone wants to take advantage of that. But those are the ways that I would suggest learning. Take advantage of the academic opportunities. Make sure that you're doing some sort of coursework outside of your academic opportunities, and just be relentless in the questions that you're asking of people around you.
Wow, I love that. And I love the story about taking 5 semesters of Italian too. That's incredible. But yeah, I know we're reaching the 45-minute mark, so I really want to be respectful of your time. I know there's a lot more questions in the chat, but hopefully afterwards, maybe I can forward them over, and hopefully you'll still be able to ask them. But yeah, I think we're pretty much reaching the end of our time here. I also saw that like Ted just put the course in the chat, so for all students, feel free to check that out as well. But yeah, I think we can go right into our raffle. There are a lot of questions, so don't worry if your question wasn't asked. I still entered you into the raffle, so I'll now screen share, and we can see what the random name generator. All right, so started. All right, congratulations, Sonia. So you are the raffle winner, and yeah, you'll be receiving a signed copy of Hackable. So Ted has kindly been able to offer that to the raffle winner. So thanks for everyone who asked questions as well. Hopefully this event was really educational, and thank you so much, Ted, for coming. Honestly, I think all of us learned a lot, and there are a lot of amazing stories and lessons inside your talk. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for hanging out today. And I would encourage you to use me as a resource, right? I'm super easy to find. Just go to tedharrington.com. And if you need to figure out how to follow me on social media, you want to contact me, you want to learn more about the book, like it's all there. So don't be shy.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming to talk about your experiences. That was incredible.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.